Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Galactic Ambition, a Star Wars Unlimited podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family. I'm Dan.
And I'm Jason, and things are really heating up as we head towards the release of Set 2, and also it's really hot.
Oh, that's okay. Summer.
Oh,
yeah.
man, it's bad.
What's the temperature like where you are?
Today it was nice, 94. Humidity, after the humidity was like 100, so it feels like it was like 101 today.
Okay, that's nice.
I was out doing like lawn work and stuff for my mom, being a good son. And, you know, as we do, and I haven't cooled down. This was hours ago. So I'm hoping to channel that into tonight's discussion.
You're going to channel, you're going to make it really, you make this podcast really hot, Jason? Is that what's going on?
Well, maybe not.
You know, where I am, it's about 70, about like the whole day. That's where it is.
That's really cool. It's like even like 80 at night, like the middle of the night, and just swampy and just not great.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite time of the year. I don't do well in the summer. That's why all my facial hair fell out. It's been just bad.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
You might as well be on Tatooine.
I might as well. I mean, I'd rather be anywhere but in Florida today. It's so miserable. But I'm glad to talk about what we're going to talk about today. I think it'll be a nice distraction. And I'm really excited. Maybe
it'll be cooler in the shadows, Jason.
Ooh, nice. I should have thought of that.
Yeah,
that is nice. Maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. That was the obvious one. Have you been making any more progress? I think it's been a while. First of all, audience, I'm sorry about the delay again. More scheduling issues, but it's just been rough. It's been rough. I think we got to figure it out. Obviously, with my career change, it's been interesting getting back into the LGS space, but that also has its own set of demands of when you need to be there sometimes. And as it turns out, the night we record, to put it behind the curtain, is every Thursday night. And Thursday night, we're having like 30 plus Commander players. We're firing all of our Bandai events on Thursday night. And my role is kind of like the event guy. Like I run everything because, you know, I have a winning personality and panache for these events. So I finally got a little bit of finagling to kind of make sure I could be here because this is a lot of fun. It's very important that I'm here. It's just, I also have to keep my lights on. So finding that balance is very important.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle in life, the balance between doing your hobbies, doing your job, the dark and the light, as they like to say.
I will say working in something I enjoy again has been really nice.
That's been me too recently, actually. So another peek behind the curtain, but my career changed last week, actually, as one of our local stores who I have a very good relationship with, who supported Maindeck for a long time, offered me a position doing event coordination also, actually, but also working primarily on their online presence, rebuilding their website right now, and we're going to be focusing on online sales. So that has been taking up a lot of my time too. It's been so like prior to this, I got a lot of Maindeck work done during my workday at my previous job, which was fairly laid back, fairly low key. And so now I just haven't had as much of that kind of time to keep up with things. It's like it's eating away at me a little bit. It's why part of the reason why like podcasts have been not why the actual episodes have been delayed, but the posting of podcasts to other platforms has had a lag time now, because it's been finding the time to get it exported into the correct file type and get it uploaded in the correct place and get everything fixed up so the podcast appears correct to everybody. So that has been, I've been struggling a little bit with that, hoping to kind of work out some efficiencies moving forward to be able to deal with that. But at the same time, my work days have been flying by because I am really excited about what I'm doing there.
And that's good. It's just growing pains. He's got to get it accustomed and lined up, and it will be good. I think ultimately it sounds much better, which is definitely most important.
Yeah, and it's really good, and they're super supportive of Maindeck. So it's going to be really cool. Like things like wait, I can't talk about some things yet, but there are some things later this year, trips that I have to be on, where I might have started to run up against like not having PTO or something previously, but
Yeah.
with the new job, it's more like, yeah, you definitely need to go to that. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out.
That's awesome.
Kind of thing.
Kind of in the same boat too, which is really nice. Like, cause I was worried, like obviously Gen Con's coming up and I'm like, oh, I really still want to go to that. But I go from having, you know, all this PTO to not, and they're like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We just want you to go. And especially cause it's part of what I do. They want me to go to that and, you know, bring that back to the store and put our best foot forward. So it's been a lot of fun with that. And I'm really excited for Gen Con. We're so close.
We are very close to getting to. Actually, we're very close to the release of Shadows of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. I just posted the pre-release event tickets today on our LGS store, which is really exciting. That made it feel really real to me. I was like, oh yeah, I bought my tickets. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm going to play soon. And then when we go to Gen Con, we're going to have all these sweet Shadows of the Galaxy decks that we can play in the little pods throughout the day.
The little events.
For you people who are serious about playing for those playmats or whatever, for the full day events, you get to jam your
I got a large event ticket the other day. I know it's kind of...
Yo, you did?
It popped up. Like, you know how like last year I would just log in to like, I think it was the Grand Archive pre-release I was trying to get in last year after it posted. So I'd wake up at like 3 a.m, check it. And lo and behold, I got in a large event. I don't know.
I thought you weren't going to do it because it was the whole day.
But I don't know. I've been itching to play really bad lately.
Yeah,
and
but
like,
I wanted
we're in like the doldrums of like between set 1 and 2, you know how in any game, like as you get closer to the next set, you kind of like locals trim down or people aren't as amped up because they're saving all that, you know, for the new set. And I think that's what's happening, but that hasn't happened with me because my work schedule, I haven't been able to play. So now I'm like, all right, I would like to play. So who knows if I actually do it? I think it was just one of those things. I saw the spot and I was like, I'll go for it. And if I do it, I do it. If not.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited for the set. And it kind of feels real for me too. We just posted all of our events and I figured out which ones I'm going to be able to do. And I'm super pumped to get these cards in my hand.
Yeah, this is, well, let's maybe transition here shortly, Jason, unless you had anything else. We went a little off topic in our banter
rambling.
Here.
We don't ramble that much. You know, we have to ramble a little bit.
We'll try not to keep rambling too much here. I'm going to really briefly mention just our usual shout out to people. If you enjoy Maindeck, if you enjoy Galactic Ambition, you enjoy when we're actually posting episodes of Galactic Ambition, you can let us know. Of course, by leaving a like on the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, do all that kind of stuff. 5-star ratings on iTunes, assuming, or Spotify or wherever, assuming this actually goes up there anytime soon. I'm sure it will be up eventually, but hopefully I'm fast about this one. And if you also enjoy us and you want to support us in a more financial way, you can do so without having to spend any extra money. Just shop for your Shadows of the Galaxy singles on tcgplayer.com, but don't just go to tcgplayer.com because they don't just send all their money to us. That would be ridiculous, guys. You have to go through our affiliate link to do that. So you just go to bit.ly/shoptcgs, bit.ly/shoptcgs, or click the link in the description below. Buy your really sweet singles that you're looking for your hot Gen Con spicy brews. I know out there you got your Kira deck that you're like, this is going to smash some face. Like, yeah. Get the singles for it and then support Maindeck at the same time, which is really exciting. So thank you all so much for all the ways you support us. Jason, why don't you tell the audience what we're going to be doing in this episode?
Sure. So I think the best way to kind of bookend our set 1 experience is to talk about what went right, what went wrong with, you know, the entire set 1, whether it's anything put forward through the game itself or events or anything like that. Just kind of like our thoughts
kind of like, it's a good summation of what's happened in our eyes in set one, and hopefully what we look to see to grow and our hopes for things going forward. I think it's really cool. There's a million spoilers we could talk about. We could talk about a million cards, but I think sometimes we do best at these kind of conversations. So it'd be really nice to have one of them.
I think also our next episode of this should be releasing the day of the beginning of pre-releases. And I think in that episode, we're going to crack through a bunch of cards now that we have the full spoiler again that we're excited about, because that is the only thing that really makes sense to do on the release day since we won't have been able to play it yet.
Right.
So this is kind of our opportunity. We're going to seize it to talk about set one before we are fully thrown into our shadowy world of set two. So, Jason, I think there's a lot of things that we've seen Fantasy Flight, grow this game from the start. We got to see some interesting things with stock and everything, and I'm sure we get to talk about that. There's also things that you and I maybe predicted or gave our opinions on that may have turned out right or wrong. So where should we start? Should we start with kind of the game itself, or should we start with our takes on the game?
I think starting with the game itself is probably fine. I think that'd be a good starting point. Then we can go with our takes.
So Star Wars Unlimited set one is coming to a close now. And this was it was one of several TCG releases in the past few years that ended up being fairly high profile, which is, for people who are like new to this industry or something, this is not common, given the longer fabric of TCGs. TCGs typically go through these, well, we can say now they seem to go through these spurts where a lot of companies will just jump on around the same time, and then they'll go through these lulls where it's like a big news day when any TCG is announced at all.
Right.
And now I can't even keep track of the number of these that are releasing, and they're not only just releasing. I mean, there's a bunch on Kickstarter that are like releasing and then dying.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some of these from major companies that are releasing and selling out. And it's crazy. And just like people are all over. It's the next big thing. It's the new excitement. Star Wars Unlimited followed the heels of Lorcana. That was that's probably the next big one. And then before that was One Piece. And that was just to try to get product for that. That was insane.
Yeah, crazy.
So this one, though, Jason, as we talked about way back, a few months ago, had an interesting sort of release to it where it started off very cool. Like, it was always cool, right? But I mean, it was cold. It was Hoth, right? It was like, well, I wouldn't say cold either. It was inside a Tauntaun. Star Wars released inside of a Tauntaun, and by that I mean it was lukewarm. Okay.
Ooh.
So I'm sorry, I stole that one from something else, but
It's still good.
It's a good one. It's good
still
one.
Good. Yeah.
It started off, enough excitement was there. But it had to, it was like the last week that it kind of grew into a pitch enough it was to the point where there was product on the shelves for a number of weeks, unlike One Piece, unlike Lorcana. And then it hit. There was nothing left. So, Jason, what's your take on how Fantasy Flight Games approached and handled their general release of set one?
I think overall, if I had to grade it, it's like a B. And really because, again, I think we messed it up like we talked about. We're like, you can go to your store and get the product. So put that on the list of things we got.
It was all us.
It was definitely 100% all us, as we will things into existence here. But I will say, for all of the issues with product, I appreciate the transparency given about the situation as to why there wasn't product, as to why there's issues with product running out. I think that's something I could really hang my hat on, and something that I've appreciated versus just waiting several months and not hearing anything. We had kind of a long-term plan of when we're going to have wave releases and things like that, which is very good. I think overall, the launch was great. I do think, unfortunately, some momentum was lost with several months of not having product, especially like working in the store and like having to talk to people about it. And then when we do get restocks, how limited it was. That was kind of a hard point to convert new players. That was definitely tough. Like I'd have starter decks and we'd talk about it, and we had demo deck of the 2 starter decks and we'd play with people. And then for them to not be able to get product was pretty tough. And I was like, well, hold out hope, there's more coming. And then we find out what the first allocation to our store is. It's a box. And it's like, oh, that's not, I get what we're trying to do. We're rationing to everybody, but like, you can't do anything with that. Like, I think what we did was we just held it for prize support. And even then, like when we were holding for prize support, it's not like we can give a bunch out, you know? But overall, I think the reaction by Fantasy Flight has been good, and I'm optimistic going forward. Without getting too much in the details of set 2, release for our store, we're not getting as much as we got the first time around. And that's through no fault of our own. We wanted as much as we could get. We're not getting it, but we have a pretty good discussion with our rep about making sure we could source more products so we can get it into more people's hands, and trying to, make it to these big reprints, and now meeting up with that demand like they've talked about. They did not expect this at all with how fast it blew up and sold through everything. I don't know the exact quote. It was as much as they printed for the first year of Destiny. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's wild. So kudos to them for being transparent about it. And overall, I was happy with how everything was handled. I'm happy with the set release and being optimistic for the future of having a little bit better of a release cadence, ways, and just more product for people to get their hands on. I
want to talk a little bit about the transition into Shadows of the Galaxy from Set 1's allocation. This is an area, this kind of thing is an area where I'm expecting to be able to provide you and I together, Jason. I think have pretty good insight, especially among the realm of like Star Wars Unlimited content creators, just because I don't know. I might be wrong. I don't know if there's another Star Wars Unlimited podcast whose hosts are both like back-end LGS employees at this point now. So like maybe we'll be able to provide some interesting tidbits and takes on things for you guys. And I hope that's the case. So, but as I'm just transitioning back into that role and like really getting a grip, there's a lot of stuff. TCG industry is always several months ahead. So like your store locked in their orders for Shadows of the Galaxy long time ago. Right. So before I jumped on our LGS, they had already ordered that. We're well into that. In fact, they were like, yeah, I know it's shipping here soon or whatever. So like, okay, cool. Well, so to that end, I don't necessarily have the most up-to-date or accurate information about this right now because I wasn't directly involved in like the ordering process. But from what I understand, and maybe Jason, you can corroborate something here, but my understanding is that Set 2, they're adjusting this release. I agree, by the way. I like your grade of B. B feels right. B feels like it was not perfect. There was clearly at some point there was a mistake. Whether or not you can justify having made a mistake there, which I think you can, but other people might argue differently about like the amount printed or whatever. That's there's certainly some stuff that could have been done differently. But it also, in all things considered, a lot of people got product and a lot of people got to play, and it was on shelves for a while. So for Set 2, what I've been told is to attempt to address this now, they are allocating on the front end, meaning they're paring down everyone's orders a lot tighter for the initial weekend release. And their goal now is to then take their stock. So previously, imagine it this way. They had their stock of Spark of Rebellion, and they just sold. They didn't allocate anything. And there's like, yep, take it, because they weren't in a position to turn down a sale, given how tepid everyone was feeling about, a lot of store owners were feeling about the game. So they just sold. And then they had to go, stop. We only have a little bit left. Allocate this. In this case, Shadows of the Galaxy, I've been told they took everything and they said, okay, now we're going to allocate this. So it's supposed to be a wave type release now, but instead of these almost comical waves of one box being sent to stores for set one, which was 100% accurate. Stores were all getting like one box when they got something, and that was it. That's not even an exaggeration. It would be 24 booster packs.
Yeah, just one box
would come in for your store, and that was it. So I don't know numbers, obviously, but every store is getting less on the front end, and then those waves are going to have more product in them over time. Jason, does that match what you've heard?
Oh, so after our initial discussion, we have a new rep that actually reached out to us and kind of let us know the same thing. Because at first we did not have that same information.
Okay.
We didn't. And also it's remember, we're talking like with these experiences, you're usually talking to a different person, whoever, might divulge whatever they can or what they know. So we made our initial order. We thought we were getting X. We got allocated Y. Now we know why. I think it's good overall, but it's been very difficult to explain to people.
Yeah.
That's a tough pill to swallow for some people, especially with pre-orders. We've had to be very frugal with our pre-ordering because we don't want someone to buy us all out, and especially with how volatile the market has been for set 2 pre-order. Which is a whole other bag of cats, in itself. Bag of cats.
Yeah, we gotta let the cats out of the bag.
Let the cats out of the bag.
Tell people at some point.
I
agree. It's been difficult. Our store has we've allocated 3 boxes per person in our pre-order, so you can pre-order no more than 3 boxes, and they're in store only. We're doing none online. And we ordered a lot of product. So I know there are stores that ordered less and are going to be tighter than that. That is pretty tight for, what our players are asking for, though. So it's going to be a bit challenging. And the other thing that's going to be interesting about this system compared to Spark of Rebellions is that I think you're going to see the prices act a little different in this set now, too. As Jason already sort of said, the market has been a bit volatile already for this. I think the hope is that, and it's a possible outcome of this, is that the prices are going to remain a little more consistent because there aren't going to be as many dearths of product over time. You're not going to have like no product anywhere for 2 or 3 months, which is what Spark of Rebellion had for 3 months. But you're going to see, I think, that the price remains not as high as when there's a total dearth of product, but never at really MSRP either. Yeah. It's going to be just generally higher for a longer period of time without ever spiking to the point that Spark of Rebellion went to. Do you think that's a fair estimation, Jason?
I agree. And kind of talking about our pre-order strategy, everyone was able to get a box at MSRP, and additional boxes are a different value. Because the competition in the area and our market for our e-commerce as well, if we just put it all up at MSRP, we would have nothing.
It's gone. And then the area gets nothing.
So you kind of it sucks to kind of have to do that. Like, we do have strategies outside of that, making sure we don't list our entire inventory, things like that. But also too, from the business standpoint, it's like, well, you can't just sell it all at MSRP because then you're just getting taken for a ride and then you have nothing. So it's, again, my opinion, and especially on singles, is that I don't think singles out the gate are going to be like when we were opening them in set 1. I was able to trade for Luke's at like $10 a pop and stuff like that. Absolutely not going to happen with the cards in this set at Legendary or higher. I would expect kind of like almost near the mid to top end of what singles prices we're getting to for some more of the sought after cards in set 1. And then a gradual taper, I think, as the meta evolves and plus product availability.
Yeah. I agree completely. And whether players like this, I mean, obviously the singles thing it's not nice. Look, Star Wars Unlimited has become, very quickly became a fairly expensive game to play competitively. Just just kept putting it out there. That's just a thing that's true. It's an unfortunate thing in some respects. The nice thing about that is it means that players are earnestly very interested in this game.
Yeah.
And that is something that, this is the great balancer, the great thing you have to balance in a TCG, which is that if the prices are high, it's because people want it. If the prices are low, it's easy to get into the game, but that's usually because nobody wants it. You have to explicitly people are going to be like, what about Pokemon? You have to be Pokemon to manage anything other than that.
Yeah. Sorry.
And no TCG can print like Pokemon does to make those prices exist that way. I hardly even know how Pokemon manages it on the back end. It's not a fair comparison point for any other card game.
No.
It's just not. It's not a fair comparison point. So overall, I think B is a good grade for the general release of the product, set release, allocation, everything. I would maybe, if I were feeling a little spicy, I would maybe say B minus, and the minus is because I think it could have been possible that they could have caught the issue a little faster following release to allocate a little more for everybody over time.
Sure.
Because I think there are a number of stores that got in just a lot of extra stuff when they realized, no, wait, this is exploding. And the person who should have realized that should have been someone at Asmodee, who then goes, oh, we're done sending this to people.
Yeah, we had to slow it down.
So, okay, so that's that.
What about the game and meta itself?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Sounds good. I'll go ahead and start if you want.
Yeah.
So, Set 1's metagame, overall, I'm extremely thrilled with how the meta shook down. As somebody who was very personally negative about the metagame as it started. I didn't really talk about much here because A, with some of our releasing was intermittent with scheduling things going on, and B, it never really came up. I'm never the biggest fan of, we'll go to another game real quick, Fire Emblem weapon triangle styles.
Okay.
Where it's like sword and axe and all that kind of stuff. One beats one. Rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, okay. But I don't care about rock. I don't want to talk about rock, paper, scissors. But
using Fire Emblem as the reference.
I think it's way cooler that way to me, and that's how I think of it. But yeah, the typical rock, paper, scissors kind of metagame. And we kind of felt that at first when everyone's like, "Oh, it's Sabine. Oh, it's Boba. Oh, it's Vader." And it was like Vader that for a little while until people kind of got like a little more creative. A little more. There was Palpatine too. A little more outside the box, exploring more combinations for decks, especially that's really evident with the start of the Store Showdown season, when a lot of the winning decks were, your Sabine commands, your Boba commands, ECL this, ECL that, ECL, Then as things evolved, we saw some more decks. I think one of the decks that have excited me the most out of all this was Yellow Palpatine. I think it's one of the most disgusting decks I've had the pleasure of playing. It's so filthy. It really shows what cunning can do. I think
for the audience, we just posted a video last week on, or the beginning of this week, me, on our friend Sundeep's Yellow Palpatine deck, and man, it is a beauty of a deck. It's incredible, and I'm playing it on Saturday this week, and I'm very excited.
Nice, yeah, and shout out to Sundeep. He had an incredible Store Showdown season, incredible organized play season himself.
He's got honestly, I think he's got to be one of the players with the most Store Showdown placements and or wins under his belt of like any player, I think.
And that just shows how he's grinding and dedicated. And it's really nice. And we know Sundeep from back when we played, Panini Z, and how he did extremely well in that game. Obviously, world champion and all that good stuff. But the way the meta evolved, it definitely did the whole set one infancy kind of meta where there's like one or two or three decks. And now I could confidently say there's a nice handful of decks out there that you could play and feel pretty competitive. That's not to say go sleeve up IG-88. I would not recommend that.
There are a handful that really aren't that competitive too.
Right. And that's, and without digging into, we'll save that for the next video. Set 2 is supposed to help some of these archetypes. Some of them did not receive much help at all. So we're going to have to hope for a bit longer for them to get a little more help. I love IG-88. I think he actually he's a really good unit and leader unit, but, he suffers from, the classic dies to, take down Doomblade.
Dies to removal.
But yeah, the meta opened up really nicely, and I think the store showdown cycle kind of showed that there is a little bit of creativity out there, and people were willing to explore and not just feel comfortable jamming Boba and just all of his good cards with it.
I think I'm of two minds about the metagame. Just to be a little bit different, because I completely agree. The thing that was most exciting to me was seeing across the period of months the number of creative decks that people were willing to put out there and bring. Like early on, we saw Chirrut become a little bit of a spicy hot take that, of course, Jason, you were leading the charge on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. And then we saw there was the period of time when Han became the scary deck for a while. And that was really fun to me too. Vaders, we saw some people playing Lukes and starting to perform really well with them a little later on too. Trying to think, we never really saw things like Cassian or Tarkin take off. Cassian.
There was like some Leia list that would do okay.
No, Leia's been there.
Leia's gotten there.
Leia and Sabine have been fairly interchangeable in the aggro slot as far as taking events. They both kind of, Leia has the action compression. Sabine has just the raw damage and kind of the speed of dropping the leader. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both aggro lists. But the one thing that has, two things have remained constant, I'll say, throughout this entire metagame. So this is my negative side of things, is that Boba has never actually found a check that was consistent enough. And I'm going to, when we talk a little bit more about our takes on things, I want to talk a little bit more about that, just our what takes were right or wrong. Boba never really found a true check and maintained his position as the most consistent, most forgiving deck that you can play. And cunning and command. It almost didn't matter what your leader was. I mean, I think that's true. I think that's fairly true. There are very few leaders even that couldn't compete if you were playing the right card pool of cunning and command cards, which I mean, I think they were just, there were certainly like props to, again, that like Blue Vader that had a splash in sort of the early mid season. That was incredible. Because that was running no cutting and command cards, right? But still consistently across the board, you could slap any cunning command deck together. And if you were a decent player playing any cunning command deck, you should probably top 8 your Store Showdown.
They definitely carried your list for sure. And very forgiving. You made a really good point. Very forgiving to play those decks.
I mean, I think it's a little tricky. Cunning is the less forgiving side of that. Right? Cunning cards are typically a little like, you have to apply this at the right time. However, there's a lot of effects that are very flexible in cunning because none of them are just like hard removal, but that means they're like waylay. It's like, well, when isn't waylay like useful? It's like, but command, man, it just commands raw value that it gave you with little, it took, a thing I've been talking about recently too with other card games is command takes fewer risks. Command has no like trade-offs for big potential. It's just, it gets value from putting dudes into play, and you win the game from putting dudes into play and getting value. And so it just kind of, you just do the thing and then it rewards you. It's not like aggression where it's like, I'm going to have really strong effects early on in the game and then kind of peter out. So it's like, that's a risk reward play style. It's like, if you can pull it off in the early game, you're unstoppable. If you don't, you're stoppable. very stoppable.
Right.
Vigilance, basically the opposite of that. It's really strong in the late game. Like, man, how many you put Avenger down? Like, are you going to lose that game? How can you? Well, Command is actually
I was going to say, well,
the Devastator. But still it has like a weaker early game and then builds into, now my cards can answer everything. Now I'm totally good. So again, there's like a risk reward to that play style. Command is just like solid throughout the whole. It's that kind of even line where the other ones are going to divert up or down. Command's just always good. And it just turns out in this, I don't know if it's this early metagame, I don't know if it's player mentalities, but that was the most effective strategy for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So I would say meta-wise, again, looking at the fabric of trading card games, it was I'd say it was a good meta, but not a great meta game. I think that's fair. I think a great meta game would have had a more fair share of representation of aspects and leaders throughout multiple high-level top cuts. Not so many top cuts that are dominated by, guess who won? It was Boba. I think that would be the hallmark of a great metagame for a card game. A good metagame for a card game has room for people to explore things, which is exactly what we saw, but largely dominated by one or several highly similar strategies.
Yeah. I kind of think of it as like, you still can't really color too much outside the lines. And with the current meta, with how you would deck build, you still need to follow very specific, like you can't go really rogue right now. There's no real like rogue deck that's going to be like, wow. I don't think there is. I do think, again, there's been some really cool creativity, but with the strong card pools. Like if you notice the creative decks, they're not aggression, vigilance, they're not. Especially because kind of what you just said, when you don't have a check and balance or check at every point of the game, it's really hard for you to be like, well, I think I'll just play this when you could just play Command, which really just has something at all points of the game. And especially with like Overwhelming Barrage being like one of the more egregious examples of that, in my opinion. But yeah, I would say good. I'm very happy it evolved a bit more. And for a set one metagame, I think I'm very happy with it. For the card pool we had. I've played games where set one metagames have been much, much worse.
You've played Bandai games.
I played Bandai games. I think, we could have a whole discussion on set one metagames. So yeah, but Bandai games in particular definitely jump out to me.
Yeah. And I think too, another interesting thing to talk about is just heroism versus villainy. Because the color system in Star Wars Unlimited, of course, is just a little unique in the fact that we do have these 4 colors, and then we also have these 2 tints to the different combinations of colors that you'll run. And clearly, I think villainy had the lion's share of the power
for sure
in set 1. It's not to say there are like, look here for a visual audience. Ooh. Here's my beautiful Ewing reinforcements. Okay.
Just
this
bragging.
Is one of the best heroism cards for sure. I love it. I went out of my way to get a nice copy for a Twin Suns deck. But overall, the villainy cards performed just a little bit. The value that they accrued a little bit more consistent and effective in what the metagame was like than the heroism ones.
Agreed. Who's to say that's not going to change? And especially with what we've seen so far, without digging into too much detail, I think there are strides to a little more parity, but absolutely, definitely you just got way more value. Like the biggest example every time I talk about is Power of the Dark Side. I'm like, why is this a card? But we can talk an hour about that card. Anyway.
Yeah, they're villainy. I think part of this too is that in set 1, based on the way that they themed heroism and villainy, which we talked about back in our aspect episode 2, heroism was about protection. Villainy was about destruction. Destruction is in card games across the bar consistently a better strategy to take, because if your opponent isn't actively trying to prevent it from happening, then you just get to do it. Whereas you're protecting your things only really matters if they're actively trying to get them off of the board. So it's almost like a prisoner's dilemma type situation, I think, but it's one that is in favor of the prisoner who has overwhelming barrage and power of the dark side.
And I think another thing you mentioned, like protecting and all the heroism stuff, I'd also be remiss to mention that I think Villainy has two of the best sentinels in the entire game. It's Selbach Guard and Emperor's Royal Guard. Like, so it's funny to me, but I do think that they nailed the thematics very well.
Yeah.
Of each aspect. Absolutely. I think that like a flavor win feels really good. But in playing, I would much rather have the answer to the question than be asking the questions a lot of the time.
Yeah. That's the great kind of adage to bring up about that as well, and a good way to frame it. Before we move on to our takes, Jason, now we talked about competitive, we talked about the supply of the game. What is your take on Star Wars Unlimited from a game, like not talking about the competitive meta game, any of that, sure. From a game, like a gameplay, a mechanical perspective, having now played it for 4 months?
I will say it's still one of the most enjoyable games and unique games I've ever played. Still feels good. Every time I play, I still have that I still really enjoy the action economy, trying to get as much into my cards and as much value out of my turns as I can. I think they really got something special in the gameplay loop. Truly, I really think that it's a hallmark for a very good game, for something to feel engaging in any card game you play. Altered, it's a bit different, but it still hooks you in a different way. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's going to really, I could sink my teeth into it and be like, wow, this is different than my draw 7, draw 1 kind of game. Or draw 5, draw 1 kind of game. And I really think Star Wars Unlimited really has harnessed something special in that regard, that I think for the overall longevity of the game is always going to hook somebody new looking for a new experience. And I think they captured it very well. I think they have a really nice balance of playing reactively and proactively, whereas some other games, you don't really have that, like a Pokemon where all you're doing is playing pretty proactively for the most part. You're playing on I need to do this, this, and this so that my opponent can't do this, this, and this. Whereas in Star Wars Unlimited, we have a very nice, almost like balance in playing proactive and reactively, which I really enjoy. And again, I think the idea of the action loop and how the game works and how the turn process is, it's unlike anything I've ever played and really enjoyable.
The thing that I found myself thinking about the game, week after week of playing with our locals and getting deeper into it, and getting more used, especially just getting more used to the general gameplay flow, feeling it out, I got faster. I got better at kind of making these decisions, seeing them. And when I play now with someone who also has played the game a whole lot, the gameplay flows. I don't know exactly how to describe this because it's so overused. I'm not going to use the word smooth because that is way too overused, and could mean a lot of things here, but it is almost effortless. We get into a wavelength with the opponent to the point where I will do something and I often know generally what the response is. The obvious play. There are plays, and of course, to the game's credit, there are non-obvious plays. I don't know what's in their hand or something, but I will do something, and I immediately know you're going to attack with that thing. You're going to attack this thing. You're going to, and especially those early turns, you can almost just like close your eyes, do the things, and you and your opponent will have like kind of like it's like opening moves in chess, almost. Like defenses and everything. And I do mean that in a positive way. I guess some people might construe that as being a negative thing because I certainly don't think the game plays itself, but I just appreciate, having played the game a bunch, how quickly we can kind of move our pieces around and get the game rolling, and how still just fun it is to do that, to go through those motions. I see what their unit is. Okay, I know roughly what turn 2 is going to look like now. going to do this. They're probably going to attack this into that, and then that. And so we go fast. And there's something to I'm sure like when Marvel Snap released, a lot of players found out there's something to games just kind of clipping along and being almost effortless like that, where you just like zip through and you get to the conclusion. And I have found that to feel Star Wars Unlimited has felt that way for me as we got deeper into the season, which is nice. I just think it feels really good.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that. And I was thinking about saying something. Those first few turns really do feel like that kind of, okay, you're playing this. I think I know where this is going. I know where this is going. I think that I know where I'm going to go with these next few turns based on my draw. And it's a good feeling to like, and especially as a card player, it's a nice comfort. It feels really good. Like it doesn't like, I don't have to sit there and watch my opponent play solitaire for several turns while I wait for my chance to do something. And I think that's one of the really enjoyable parts of this game is it flows very well. The experience flows very well.
You kind of helped me really unlock how to explain this, but there are 2 games right now that I'm playing very actively because Altered hasn't released yet, and we're just kind of getting back into pushing universes a little bit on the channel as well. But those are Star Wars Unlimited and Grand Archive are the ones that I push the most. And I absolutely adore both of those games. They're both incredible games, but those first turns couldn't feel more different between the 2 games. And I enjoy the feeling of both of them. But when I go from playing at a game of Grand Archive, I get my opening hand and I usually have to tank for a while to be like, how, because in that game, you can kind of you have 7 cards and you can kind of do anything in your hand.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, trying to figure out, my optimal line, and I have to think a couple turns in advance. I go into this, and that's really fun. I love that. But then I go into a game of Star Wars Unlimited, and it just glides. Is how it feels like. Boom, 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 boom. The just at the start, I have to go. What do I resource? Okay, got it. And then zoom, and then we're off to the races. And comfort is exactly the term that I wanted for this. It puts me in this place where like my brain gets into those thought patterns I've already done a bunch of times. And for the same reason that it feels really good to have that same meal that you've had a million times in your life that always was just like that macaroni and cheese or something that just always felt really good to you. For the same reason, playing your favorite like MMO or whatever gacha game or something where you are grinding something, and is it the most fun thing in the world? Maybe in that case, not necessarily, but is it that headspace where you just kind of zen out a little bit and relax? Yeah, I think like I get that same vibe from my opening turns in Star Wars Unlimited that then opens itself up into some very fascinating decisions. And I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I really agree. I think it's just, it crescendos very well. That's what I really enjoy about the game. It builds up into this nice ending, or I get blown out by whatever aggro deck I'm playing against. But I also enjoy doing that to people, so it's fine.
Yeah. You live by the aggro and you die by the aggro.
Absolutely. Agreed.
That's how that goes. Okay, Jason. How about our takes? Our takes? We've done, this is the 11th episode of Galactic Ambition, which maybe could have been a little higher number, but we started late and then we missed a few. and that was tough. But we did get 11 episodes out from shortly prior to release to the almost set 2 now at this point. And we had plenty of takes on things. I think W takes and some L takes. So let's start with the one I kind of referenced earlier. Earlier on, we had an episode about the metagame. As it was growing, as we saw the rise of Boba Fett at the time. How did we do predicting how the metagame would shift over the full? Can you go over what our predictions were, Jason, and we'll just make sure we're in line with those, and then how did we do predicting that?
So really, it was like kind of like the rock paper scissors kind of thing. You're going to have your aggro deck, your mid range deck, which in the first few events, Boba was smacking everybody around because Sabine did really well. And then what was the advent? What was supposed to come and save us all is control, harder control. to kind of thin things out, check Boba. I don't know if it truly checked it, because I do think Boba's kit overall is just kind of stronger than everybody else's as a whole package. But Control kind of came along, and then it kind of was like flip a coin on the day of the week of what someone wanted to win an event with, which isn't bad. I think that's a very good thing. It's nice to feel like there's no outside of Boba. And there was a while too where Sabine was just kind of taking names. People trying different builds, like, even like the yellow Sabines as well. Again, shout outs to Cunning.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just, we kind of got that right. I think what we undervalued a little bit is, I think just in general, and me in general, I think I would talk well about Palpatine, but I never thought it was going to be super relevant. Like, I was like, this is going to be the control deck. And then I saw what Vader was doing as a control. I'm like, wait, I would much rather be doing this. Palpatine is just awesome. And I should have gave more credence to that. I think I missed the boat on how well Palpatine is to pilot. And I hate playing control, but I really enjoy playing Palpatine, because the mini game of when am I going to flip Emperor Palpatine is so much fun to always have in my back pocket. Like, once I have that online, I'm like, all right, now you have to guess. And I really enjoy that. And it also lends to some really awesome tools in deck building. And, but I think overall our metagame, I think we kind of got there. I think I could have done a little bit better on getting out of my aggro brain and kind of thinking about more control shells that might have been out there. But overall, I think we hit the mark.
Okay. I think I hinged a lot of our prediction on, I said specifically Palpatine was going to come and give Boba a reckoning. And I think that Palpatine was underplayed. I think people didn't find like Sundeep's cunning list soon enough, widely enough. There were definitely players who were playing it. But a lot of players trying Palpatine were really, really locked into aggression. That was like the really common things, like you've got to play Palpatine with aggression because Palpatine's also an aggression. And I don't know if there are more reasons than that. That's really unfair for me to say, but some people did. Like, I thought that right away. I was like, yeah, it's duh. But cunning Palpatine, I think, clearly was the winner of the deck that is able to take down the most stuff, the most consistently, and do the most damage back to Boba Fett, because taking fire spray and then sacking it is the best way to deal with fire spray that I can imagine.
Yep.
So that is so I think though I ultimately will say I was wrong. I think my L take was that people would figure out control well enough to check Boba Fett not completely, but to check him to the point where he wasn't a consistent contender. Not just contender. He should always be consistent contender, but check him well enough that he didn't win as many events as he did. Right. And that simply wasn't true. And I think partially because people never quite figured out the Palp list, partially because the Palp list is actually a Boba list in a high cost trench coat. It's, that's part of it too, that we can't, like, that's the elephant in the room that we have to mention. The, what's a Ronto, the Ronto in the room. I'm sorry. I always try to use a Star Wars creature reference.
Branding. That's good.
But I also think that, aggression decks, not the aspect, aggro decks in the format but it usually had the aggression aspect, were usually still so present, and teching your Palpatine deck to consistently handle Sabine is very, very difficult. Sundeep tells me that it's fine. I read the comments on our video. By the way, I will lower the volume on the next one. I guess it was louder than I expected. Sorry. The video production is not always so cut and dry and simple. I will have the next one have a lower audio volume. I also read the comments that said, I cannot believe that you could like win against 6 Sabines in a single store championship with this list. And Sundeep's lines are like, well, yeah, you just draw this. And then it's like, that might work for a god tier world champion Sundeep, but I am not one of those. And I need my hand held as I beat aggro. Like I need to play Vigilance where it's like, just slam the cards on the table and the aggro player cries, you know, like my list is entirely making openings. It's 40 making openings. That's what I need. And then I can handle the aggro deck. But I think part of it is that I don't know how to put this the right way, because I know there's a bunch of very skilled players who are trying control decks, but it might not have been, people might not have like just been able to figure out, given the card pool, these esoteric high level lines to like consistently beat these Sabine and other aggro lists with Palpatine, to the point where bringing Palpatine to a tournament ended up being quite a liability, where either you saw Boba Fett the whole time and you went, this is the greatest day of my life. And Boba still won sometimes because Boba just Boba. Right. Or you saw a bunch of Sabine lists and you went, why did I wake up this morning? And that just, there were other control leaders. There were Vader, and like Vader was a better check to Sabine.
Absolutely.
Because running the Vigilance, the Vigilance aggression Vader's like just more than half your deck is just like kill that. It's like basically the whole deck was that. Yeah. Whereas the Palpatine list is a little more reliant on just like getting to the late game and then being like really overwhelming. So I don't know. Ultimately, I officially take the L on my control prediction, which is just that for a number of reasons, it just didn't quite pan out. And mid-range and aggro both remained, I think, the top of the pack with control behind. And we never got that clean, as everyone likes to say, Fire Emblem.
Yeah, everyone triangle. Says that. Everyone says that. But no, and I think the thing that I realized in trying to play control in the aggro is like you have to sacrifice too much of what makes your control shell a control shell to tech against aggro well, and Boba just would. I think coin flip situation got way worse.
Given the card pool, though, right?
Sure.
Because I see the card pool will change over time. Already, there are people who are very big mad about some removal spells in the next set and everything, removal cards. That there's a lot of powerful disruption effects. There are ambush abilities that are not tied to a 25 health base. That is huge, by the way. And I want to finish my thought, then I talk about that. But there's potential, of course, for everything to adjust over time, for control decks to have their heyday, and for people to be really mad that playing the game is playing against control decks all the time. I don't know. I think if you can't beat them, join them, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, mine does. Yeah, no thanks. But I think it's also healthy to have those ebbs and flows.
Bases, Jason. I don't know if we ever made our base predictions like super, super clear, but I had a few base takes early on. My base takes early on were 25 health bases are the bog standard. You should always run those, generally speaking, to get the effect. And that people would figure out most of those bases and they would all become on close to the same par. I still thought ECL was like a little bit stronger. The command was a little bit stronger than the others because that ambush was just nuts. But I thought that Tarkin Town, I thought that Security Complex, and I thought even Jeddah City, I'll say it, would get there to be pretty close and preferred. Totally wrong.
Yeah, you were
totally wrong. To the point where I generally run 30 health bases now.
Yeah, I was kind of on the opposite side of the fence. I'm a coward. I think I was bigger on Security Complex than I should have been. I thought it was really cool, and then I ran it for a while. I'm like, oh my God, I need 5 hit points. Very bad.
It is really good in double vigilance.
Yes.
And that's about it.
Yeah. I have a very good example of playing against it this past week. My buddy was playing Grand Inquisitor with Security Complex, and I'm like, what a shame, because you could definitely use those extra 5 hit points.
Dead Inquisitor.
Game. Yeah. Get it together.
Yeah. Because you can't side it out.
Yeah.
And
could you imagine? Oh my God. I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
That'd be sick.
I don't know what that would be like. Tarkin Town, I still think is the second best of the 25 health bases, but it is a big drop.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big drop between those two. I was higher on Tarkin Town right away. I've cooled on Tarkin Town now because I generally find if you're playing red in your deck, you just don't have all the tools necessarily to keep yourself alive into the late game.
Yeah, I think it's just handicapping yourself more for a little bit more utility, which I don't think is great.
Yeah. I think Security Complex is actually really good in specifically double vigilance and is pretty hard to play outside of double vigilance. Yeah. So it's very niche, but good.
And I think the big thing with Security Complex too, it's like, I could still kill your thing that you just put a shield on. I'm just going to use my removal spell on it.
Yes.
And then you just got time locked.
We can't sideboard it.
Yeah.
If you could sideboard, it'd be different because Security Complex can come in when all they have is damage sources, and it's a lot better. It works when the rest of your deck can handle the decks that can answer it without damage, which means vigilance decks, right? So if you're like playing, again, this is why I like double vigilance, because double vigilance can play that grind game really well against some other vigilance X decks by just having an unlimited health pool and access to mill more efficiently. Yeah. I guess if it really wants to, it can just do that. Whereas then it just uses Security Complex and its massive amount of recovery to deal with aggro decks and be impossible to kill.
I pretty much agree with everything there. I'll just go on the record and say I was not playing 25 hit point bases. That jig was up.
Yeah, you had it, Jason. You had it right, I think, largely, typically. And I was a little too optimistic about the power level of these. And Jeddah City just.
I have a take on Jeddah City, though. I've really enjoyed playing Jeddah City when I do play it. And when it's right, it's right. I really like it. I've talked about it before. I love to punch up. I think it's a nice feeling when I'm playing a game. It feels scrappy. It feels like I'm really getting in there and trying to. And Jeddah City enables punching up plays and stuff like that. I do think, and it's something that we could put in our look forward to, I think there's definitely more room for the 25 hit point bases with some of the cards we've seen. I upgrade synergies, for example. Having an upgrade on demand is going to be really nice for some strategies with Security Complex. I do think I really like how we're hinging into that, but overall, I think outside of Tarkin Town, and obviously ECL has just you were just not making the right decision if you were playing a 25 hit point base.
You can play Security Complex in your double vigilance Finn, and you can sacrifice the shield to put a shield onto the unit. That's
like, what is it, like Pimp My Ride? You remember that?
Yeah.
I put a shield on your shield, like that.
It's more like, I think it's more like plugging a surge protector into itself.
It's like Inception. Remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember that one.
Man.
I went into that movie, by the way, knowing absolutely nothing about it. I went to the movies. I never heard of it. I just bought a ticket and I went into the theater. And that was a fun experience. I was like, what is going on right now? I
fell asleep during it in the movie theater because that was back in my little bit of my more partier kind of days I had.
Ooh.
And so I was under libations and I woke up having no idea what was was going on. Very confused.
That would be really confusing to wake up in the middle of them.
Very upset, but that was a nice little aside.
I'm confused and upset. I don't want to be here right now.
But I rewatched it and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, to be young.
Okay, how about, did you have any other takes you wanted to talk about? Those are, I think, some of my...
I have one take that I want to take the L on here. Okay. And it was kind of the organized play process. I thought there'd be a little more to. We knew we weren't going to have a bunch of organized play, but man, my one thing, if I could say that we need to change and maybe improve a little bit, is the organized play promo process. OP packs are fun, but that nostalgia wore out very quickly for a lot of people. It didn't entice people to come back out once they opened them. The art framing was cool and all. I don't really like how the art is framed. I think the command cards look like, I hate that. It looks splotchy. It's not for me. So I'm hoping that, and I thought we would have a little bit more, even though with no real organized play. I think the store showdown process in general, not the best. I don't want to say Mace Windu was not a bad prize card. I think having a legendary as a prize card was really cool in general. Yeah. But it definitely didn't like bring a lot of extra grinding out or anything like that. It just felt like, okay, here it did what it was intended to do. I'll say that. Like it was only meant to be like, hey, you're going to go and be the best in your store. That's what a store showdown was. What it was supposed to be, what it's supposed to feel like. They even mentioned it. It's a casual tier event, but with a little bit more prestige behind it. I think I just thought we'd maybe I was a little more optimistic than I should have been. And I'm hoping, and we know it's going to change with set 2. But I will say for a 4-month release cycle, that was kind of tough.
Yeah, I wasn't going to quite get into this necessarily, but after experiencing the 4 months of Spark of Rebellion, my hope is that, well, yeah, we were talking about our hopes, right?
Yeah, we're looking for, this is one of our hopes. We're looking forward to this. There we go.
Okay. My hope is that, and this won't happen in the Shadows cycle or in the Twilight cycle, but I hope that they look to a 3-month release cycle, 4 sets per year down the line. I think that would be a year 3 or 4 thing. Unfortunately, I don't know how it's possible to necessarily improve their current cycle and get things out with how far out in development everything is, and the different stages things are at in production. But I think 3 months would be perfect. I think 4 is a little long because our events were pretty dead.
Yep.
Compared to how they started right away. It's going to happen to every game.
Sure.
It's going to happen to every game. But as we got towards the end, our locals, which started as teens of people and is spread across multiple stores, and that's, that impacts things too. But even when we had the one day of the week when people were playing, or when we had no other stores were hosting an event at the same day as us, is what I'm trying to say. Towards the end, we were having 4 to 6 players show up for that. And it's just a little, product was part of it. Product was part of it too. I'm not going to say that. Summer starts, that kind of up here, at least that makes things a little tougher. But I think people were ready for Shadows last month.
Absolutely.
They were ready for it. It was like, okay, cool. Give me the new stuff. I want new stuff for my stuff. And then my new stuff is cool and my stuff is cool and I can go buy stuff and have fun stuff. That's what people wanted. Stuff.
They wanted stuff. Yeah.
And I appreciate that I don't have to spend as much per year on the game, but I would like to spend more and have locals be full of people all the time.
Yep. It's about engagement. It's about engaging and staying engaged and feeling engaged. And the carrot wasn't there to stay engaged for a 4-month period. If you have carrots and checks in place to stay engaged, then cool, you can do a 4-month release cycle. A huge example is in other games, you have a monthly promo. Now this month, it's this promo. It's stuff like that.
I have thoughts about monthly promo systems too. Look, this is, if any game could figure out the perfect way to do this, everyone would copy it. And nobody has. So all we can do is throw up like, well, they could do it more like this, but maybe if they did this thing, and I don't know, they'll try it or they won't or whatever. But the point is, I do think that some changes could be made in some way in the future.
For sure. And someone will like it and somebody won't, and then we'll talk about it. That's how this works.
It's called content, baby.
Absolutely. We're going to farm that. All right. So my one hope for everything going forward is really, all right, we said in set 2, organized play is going to be a thing. Let's put our knuckles in the sand and get this to be something. Let's get to work on this. Let's, with set 2 coming out, what do we have to look forward to? Roadmap it a bit further for us. Pull that curtain back so we could see behind it, because I do think what is going to hinge on a lot of the further success is robust organized play. You can get so far on the IP, you can get so far on the gameplay loop, but you gotta have something to chase for the people that are really going to kind of keep a lot of this going. I do think the casual consumer is good for the game, but I don't think is what, on a personal level, is what will keep this game going into the future. I do think you need to have something that those grinders, not even those grinders, somebody like me who will do only 1 or 2 or 3 events every so often, that really feels there's a little bit more of a prestige or a little bit more of an end game behind it. And in tune with that too is when they're talking about the updated comprehensive rule documents, kind of stuff like that, obviously with how specific card interactions work. I know Cheer in the future is supposed to be different, and we can't just say, well, that's what's happening. We need those things kind of out there so people can have it. I think it's in good faith for the game and for the people who really want to grind in the game to just see it and know what's going on outside of what we do now.
The tournament thing is I wasn't even thinking about it, but that is something I want. The tournament guides, the rule thing is something that I want desperately. I want the comprehensive rules document to be updated, not just when a set releases.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the more disappointing parts of the season for me, which was that finding out in the middle that there were some slight quirks to things like how nested actions and nested abilities are meant to resolve, and how they were being cleared up in the next comprehensive rules document. Oh, great. When's that? Well, it's in a couple months.
That's tough.
That's far away. Now, again, granted, it goes hand in hand with them not having serious organized play. So,
right. Like, what's the point? Like, I mean, there is a point, but really, is it something to rush out and do?
But I would argue that there is a point. And the point is exactly what you're saying. This good faith towards the players is saying, like, I know that we're not putting out major organized play yet, but I know that you guys want to be playing with that in mind. You guys want to be playing high level as much as possible. So we're going to give this to you now because you want it now. That's I think one of my wishes for like things that would change. I would like more regular updates, more consistent updates for that, and more timely updates for that. And my hopes for the future of Shadow of the Galaxy on a more positive note, and forward, is that I really hope that I pull Kylo Ren Showcase.
Nice.
really. Oh my God, it looks so good. I'm so excited. I'm so legitimately pumped to build Kylo Ren deck. I'm going to build the one everyone's building. I'm going to build the green one because Palpatine returns, because memes, because you get to put Palpatine into play for cheap and you get to discard him from your hand. I legit think Kylo Ren is really good. I think that the deck looks extremely fun. And I think the showcase is about the coolest card I've ever seen in my life. Whoa. And I've seen a lot of cool cards.
That's wild. That's a take.
That's not really a wild. Cool. It's not a wild take. Okay, fine.
Oh, no, yes. I didn't say it was wild.
Part of this is that I really like the character. Okay. So, Jason, you're like, you don't even know what a Star War is. So
I've never been in a Star War.
Whatever, that looks fine.
I'm like, cool. He's tall.
He's tall. Cool. He's got a nice cowl on. I could use him without a cowl.
I could use a good cowl.
But I really, really adore the character. The artwork for not every showcase artwork is the same. Not every card artwork is the same in this game for sure. But we've seen there's a couple showcases you have spoiled so far, and one of them is Kylo Ren, and then the other one is not Kylo Ren. That's where I'll leave it as far as quality. Okay.
I like the other showcase a lot.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Sorry.
I mean, that's great. You know,
It's
the great thing about art,
it's wide. It's very wide.
It's really wide.
Yeah.
It's so wide, and I don't get it.
But it's really wide.
Okay.
But, I guess if I
it's
have
in widescreen.
Yeah, they did mess with the aspect ratio. My one really hope for Set 2 and beyond is we still get to have this awesome game to talk about every 2 weeks or so.
Oh,
it
I
seems
should have
like
guessed
longer.
you're going to do something mushy like that.
And because this is a lot of fun, and I think everyone's having a lot of fun watching it. And I think it's really exciting to have something that you enjoy so much on a lore and gameplay level than I enjoy playing so much and learning about. And I think it's a lot of fun. And I hope everyone takes that feeling we have, and it permeates through your speakers and your monitor and your earbuds, and you feel that same excitement we do when we talk about this game every couple of weeks or so.
As usual, we're going to apply criticism where it's appropriate. And at the same time, everything we say is backed by an immense passion and excitement for Star Wars Unlimited. For me, the Star Wars franchise. For Jason, my love of the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, and
apparently
tall people in it.
Is what,
and wide people in it. No,
and Jason's love of wide people.
It's really cool to explore this from a different kind of lore background, and not lore background, like background in general of media and stuff like that. So I think it's been a really cool phenomenon for me to explore and immerse myself in, and it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Yes, I am still looking forward to the future. I am confident in Fantasy Flight Games.
Absolutely.
I'm confident in their ability to deliver this game. You know, one thing I want to just real quick, I want to say props to them. I've heard that, and it's been going around now, stores are getting their product this week.
Yes.
Which is so cool because almost no game releases product to stores that early.
Oh yeah, we have our pre-release kits.
You guys already have them. And there are going to be some unscrupulous stores.
And shame on you.
Yep. But what this allows stores to do is say, hey, I was supposed to get X and I got Y, and now my events are going to have problems because I didn't get them, except you shipped this to me 2 to 3 weeks early, so now you can fix it.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks out.
That should be the standard. That should be how things work, because that just ensures that
game stuff like 3 days before the event, 2 days before the event.
Yeah,
all our Moho stuff.
Yep,
you know,
Moho. Yeah, I love that. This is the way to make sure that when players come to the event, they get to leave. They're not going to leave disappointed because they had to get turned away because sorry, it turns out Jason, you played enough card games, like promos didn't arrive or we only got one box. Sorry. So we can't do, whatever. Like, this is so cool to see. And so what this shows me again is that Fantasy Flight is really looking at there are things that they're doing to ensure like the supply chain is working. The logistics are in place. They can handle a worldwide simultaneous release by giving themselves leeway like this. But there are just a few other things that I would like to see them now turn to and go, okay, now how can we do this really well?
Right.
And we like to bring them up just to make sure that the voice is there. And I'm confident, like I said, that they will eventually get to improving some of those things. And we'll just soldier on and keep enjoying the game and bringing them up as appropriate. And that's what we do here on.
And then if we just get blackballed from it all, that's fine. We'll just talk in our little echo chamber.
We're not going to get. No, we're very respectful, right?
We are. Respectful. I like to think so. Some people don't think so, but leave those comments below too.
We had that one comment.
Oh my gosh! That was crazy.
That was wild.
We want to be honest. I think that's the thing you and I want to out of all this is be honest and just call a spade a spade. We need to be honest about it.
Yeah, and I think that'll do it, huh, Jason?
Yeah, I think so. It feels really good. I think that was a good little discussion there, and I hope people have their own takeaways. If you want to talk about what you really liked or what you really didn't like, let us know. I would love to know what you think or how you feel. Do you like wide showcase characters? Do you like them tall?
Do you like them tall or wide?
Let us know.
Comment down below. Tall character, wide character.
What's
your preference?
Let us know what you do different. But no, thank you, Dan. We had a lot of fun today.
Thank you, Jason, for joining me.
Oh, by all means. And thank you guys for listening. to Galactic Ambition, part of the Maindeck podcast family. We will be back in 2 weeks for sure. My schedule's clear. I'm here.
We're going to be consistent now.
We're going to be consistent.
Yes.
Until GenCon week. I don't know if it's going to line up. But until then,
we're going to figure something out.
We're going to put those in the oven ahead of time.
Maybe.
We might put them in the can ahead of time. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. As always, engage with us. Join the Discord. Comment. Give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform. The TCG link. Do all that. But until next time, have a good one. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.